Dear students, so once again I'm here to teach the concept of self-learning materials. So what do you mean by self-learning materials? And actually how this perform, especially the function in the classroom, especially to be an English teacher of maybe 8th or 9th or 10th standard. Of course, self-learning material, actually this designs learner as a learner-centered approach in the especially classroom. So self-learning materials performs the function of an effective teacher who guides, motivates, explains, discusses, asks some questions, maybe you're calling as assesses progress, suggests appropriate remedial measures, and even provides advice to the learners. So self-learning material emphasize that pedagogical dialogues and there's something with the learner, especially while reading the course units or any lessons, especially the learner interact with an um, invisible teacher. That means in a simulator situation, since the teacher is simulated in the materials, like what actually we are today here. So and feel as if they are being taught by him or her. So automatically the materials also provide a questions for self-check. That means for self-check and thus increase the curiosity of learners and even the success of learning, that especially self-learning, depends on the quality of the learning materials. So self-learning materials follows, as just I told in an earlier sentence, that self-learning material provides, especially it follows as a learner-centered approaches. So let me discuss about, there are a few characteristics. The one is called a self-contained. Second one is called a self-explanatory. Third one is called a self-directed. And the fourth one is called a self-motivating. Fifth one is called a self-evaluating. And sixth and the last one is called a self-learning. So let me discuss about the concept. First one is called self-contained. So, dear students, efforts are made to make the text self-sufficient so that a learner does not hunt for the additional sources or even a teacher, because for this scope of the content of the unit is visualized in the detail, and while avoiding what is actually redundant only, the essential details are presented, specially presented so that the unit can cover information required by the learner and see that keep away all that is superfluous or you are calling as just redundant. So the next concept is called self-explanatory, so that the content is presented in a style of so that learner can learn from the material without much external support. Mind it. So here actually the learner can learn from the material, that is without much external. That must he or she may not be coming under much external support. So these concepts are explained to the content, especially the content. So that extent content such as the majority of the learner are able to comprehend them. So therefore, this content, especially this content, is a self-explanatory, conceptually clear, and even I say that to make the concept self-explanatory, that the content is analyzed, presented logically considering the mental and lingual background of the learner or a target of any student or a group or anything else of a peer group. So few may not be able to comprehend. I don't actually see. So all may not be able. Maybe some of them, few may not be able to comprehend the contents fully because they may therefore need additional help and guidance by the teacher through correspondence and at study center, sometime tutorials. So the next one is called a self-directed. So the learning materials aim is actually at providing necessary guidance, that's called hints and even some suggestions to the learners at the each stage of learning. So that self-directed materials is also presented as in the form of essay explanation, and even just is called very sequential development. Even sometimes you can say that illustrations and learning activities, etc. So this for performing the role of a teacher who are actually specially who is for instant guide, instruct, or he moderate and regulate or the learning process in the especially classroom situation. Just I told that in my last earlier in the maybe last before two classes, just I told that I have been telling the same thing again and again, that the teacher is the facilitator. So that is actually a facilitator in the sense he simply guides, instructs, or something moderates. So the next concept is called self-motivating. So in the distance, especially education system nowadays, this all becomes the distance mode of education, because though we are in the regular stream because of COVID-19, so just we are here we are under, say, gone for, is called what? Um, we are very affected with the distant education, because we know that the system is actually going, and the system is simply following the same the potential area. Maybe definitely the learner remains off the campus for most of their study time. And see, the study material, like actually the teacher is in the classroom, specialism should be highlight and simply highlight. He simply highlights and encourage, especially for the welfare of the learners. And sometimes the materials you should, what do you call, arouse some curiosity. Sometimes it may raise problem. I don't actually exactly, I never say that always it arouse curiosity. Sometimes maybe it raise problems so related to knowledge on familiar situations, and even that make the entire learning meaningful for them. So providing of the reinforcement and feedback at every stage of learning. So the next concept is called as self-evaluating. So as the learner, I remain separated from the distance learning of these institutions as well as the teachers. So actually the study material should make the provisions for the specially feedback, mind it, dear students, that study material should make the provisions for every see the mark of the feedback as well, and just to ensure optimum learning. So this is called a very concept, ensure optimum learning, so that it may be concise, it may be very situated. So the learners should know whether they are on the right track or not. So self-evaluation in the same form of self-check questions, exercises, activities, etc. So because that provides the learners with a much of needed feedback about their progress minded. Actually, this feedback shows or what say extent of the progress actually they have, maybe reinforces of learning, even the motivates them for self-learning. And the such course writer should develop a very built-in evaluation system by giving an appropriate number of self-check exercises, some activities, and even questions, and in the course unit. And the last and the best concept is called self-learning, especially under the concept of self-learning materials. This concept is called self-learning. So self-instructional materials are based on the very principles of self-learning. So that actually that unit, besides of the information, provides the learner's study guide, even directions that called hints, references. Sometime you are calling as you are referring something, maybe in the name of bibliography, and it's actually so that it facilitates that independent learning, and it makes them to learn independently. So to make the content comprehensible. So it is supported by simple explanation, example, instruction, and even activities and so on. Because in other words, the materials are designed and even developed in such a way that the learner can undertake the learning by oneself with the occasional help from others, including so the teacher. So with this, just I conclude my concept about self-learning material. So in my next bit again, I'll be here to bring a very new concept. Thank you very much. Have a nice time. Take care of yourself.